Second poetry finalist tonight is Fanny Howe. She is the author of more than 20 books of poetry and prose, including most recently Come and See, The Lyrics, and The Winter Sun Notes on a Vocation. In 2009, she received the Ruth Lilly Poetry Prize from the Poetry Foundation for Lifetime Achievement. She's also the recipient of the Gold Medal for Poetry from the Commonwealth Club of California. In addition, her selected poems received the 2001 Lenore Marshall Poetry Prize for the most outstanding book of poetry published in the year 2000 from the Academy of American Poets. Her collection On the Ground was a finalist for the Griffin International Poetry Prize, and she lives in New England. Her nominated book is Second Childhood. Please welcome Fanny Howe.
Thank you all for being here on this wonderful windy night. I'm going to read, as Harold said, from my collection called Second Childhood, which is both about being a child and being old simultaneously. This poem is called The Monk and Her Seaside Dreams. The monk is a single, and so am I. But which kind? All of them from young to wild, and the boyish one, mine, cared for the weak until there was no one to care for him, besides an old woman who lived as a she. I became a penitent sequentially, first in sandals, then in boots, then with a hood and bare feet. Now night-bound, now nude, then old. In a Sabbath atmosphere, you stand still and look backwards, for time has ceased its labors, and no cattle tremble. You can contemplate the peripheries, and for a flash, see the future as a field in a semicircle. Everything is even on the Sabbath, the died and the living. Each person or place wants you as much as you want another. Towards a just and invisible image behind each word and its place in a sentence, we must have been sailing. Scarcely defended, best when lost from wanting perfect sense, but still recognizable. Be like grass, the phantom told us. Lie flat, spring up. Our veils were scrolls you couldn't walk into, but only mark the folds. I've lost my child at the bend where we parted. We will never come back to that hour. Let me write about the place again, the path so sandy, and the tablecloth blowing in a wind from Newfoundland. It was here it began. She left her bouillabaisse untouched and headed out on the train. Sort of soft, gold-lit sunset turrets in sandals were hard to identify, so many copies. Let me concentrate on ancestral faces, and I will recognize hers before my powers fail and our DNA has been smeared on cups and cigarettes, bottles and gloves, bowls and spoons, and replicated, sucked, or kissed into the lips of strangers. I have to pass through the estuary to investigate breakdown as a trail of nerve endings at the beginning of everything. Scrapes like threads seeking holes. It's a strange textile that serves as a road map. This one did. Its blue led to the edge. Where could a fabric begin and end except as a running woman who sews and passes it along? So I ran with it in my hands, a kind of Eucharist, no break in its material from the first day on earth to the Sabbath, where all are equal, and the cows covered in sackcloth. And then I'll just read this last poem, which is addressed to the poet Hölderlin, the German at the turn of the 18th and 19th centuries. Dear Hölderlin, years ago in a migration, we each carried our own rug and pillow, telescope, and strings. Our tent was portable and able to be dismantled. It could be rolled and stuffed very fast. Flowers and grass still grew freely, and sea lilac had already cracked the tarmac, so there was sustenance. At the estuary nearby, 2 continents had split apart, and a curlew flew alone and crying. Carefully, a book would be buried with iodine and wine and food that doesn't rot. The cross is a good marker for an avenue in white clover trampled where little sweet pea is growing higher. Down the hill comes a poet with ginger hair. He puts violets inside his hat, herbs and water, and says, there was once music here, a round table and gang prayer and an exploding glacier. Women kept each tent clean until one cried, I'm going to take care of myself. We heard her packing the woods into her tote, like a nymph managing a shipwreck. After that, for us all, empathy was our only hope.